Good morning, children. Saira. Welcome to part 4 of History Chapter 10, that is 18th century political formations. So, as always, children, I want you all to be ready with a notepad and a pen to jot down the important points. I hope you all are reading the lesson properly, going through each and every topic paragraph wise. Yeah, so yes, let us start with the topic now. Today's session. Before that, a small recap on what we did in the last video. So children, in the last video we learnt about the Vatan Jagirs of the Rajput, right? We saw that many Rajput kings like the king of Amber and Jodhpur, okay, they were permitted to enjoy considerable autonomy in their Vatan Jagirs. Ajit Singh, who was the ruler of Jodhpur, was also involved in the factional politics of the Mughal court. Raja Ajit Singh of Jodhpur held the governorship of Gujarat and Savai Raja Jai Singh of Amber was governor of Malwa. So children, these offices were renewed by Emperor Jahandar Shah in 1713. They also tried to extend their territories. Nagaur was conquered and annexed to the house of Jodhpur, while Amber seized large portions of Bundi. Savai Raja Jai Singh founded his new capital at Jaipur and was given the Subadari of Agra in the year 1722. Maratha campaigns into Rajasthan from 1740 imposed severe pressure on these kings and checked their expansion of empire, right? So this is what we learned in the previous video. Now in today's session we are going to learn seizing independence, and we are going to start with the Sikhs. So in today's video we are going to learn about the Sikhs, Marathas and Jats. Let us begin with the Sikhs first. So children, the organization of Sikhs, okay, helped in regional state building in the Punjab during the 17th century. Guru Gobind Singh fought many battles against the Mughals and the Rajputs. He did this before and after the institution of Khalsa in the year 1699. After his death in 1708, the Khalsa rose in revolt against the Mughal authority under Banda Bahadur, that is his leadership, and declared their sovereign rule by striking coins in the name of Guru Nanak, and also Guru Gobind Singh. And not only that, they established their own administration between the Satluj and the Jamuna. Now Banda Bahadur was captured in the year 1715 and was executed in 1760. Okay, so as I explained, Sikhs organized themselves into a political community in the 17th century and helped in the regional state building. Okay, Guru Gobind Singh fought several battles against the Rajputs and the Mughal rulers, both before and after the institution of the Khalsa in the year 1699. And after the death of Guru Gobind Singh in the year 1708, the Khalsa rose a revolt against the Mughal authority under the leadership of Banda Bahadur. Now, all these things you try to remember it point wise. Okay. Now, what happened that time was, as the Khalsa rose in revolt against the Mughal authority, okay, what happened was, first, okay, they declared their sovereign rule by striking coins in the name of Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh, and they established their own administration between Satluj and Jamuna, and Banda Bahadur was captured in the year 1750 and was executed in the year 1716. Okay. Now, in the 18th century, okay, the Sikhs organized themselves into a number of bands called Jats or Missiles. Their combined force were known as Grand Army or Dal Khalsa. Their entire body used to meet at Amritsar at the time of Baisakhi and Diwali to take collective decisions known as the resolutions of Guru or Guru Mats. They introduced a system called Rakhi for protection, okay, to cultivators on the payment of tax of 20% of the produce. So, children, Guru Gobind Singh had inspired the Khalsa with the belief that their destiny was to rule, that is, Raj Karega Khalsa. Their well-knit organization enabled them to put up a successful resistance to the Mughal governors, and first to the Mughal governors, I would say, and then to Ahmad Shah Abdali, who had seized the rich province of the Punjab and the Sarkar of Sirhind from the Mughals. As a result of this, what happened was, the Khalsa, okay, they declared their sovereign rule by striking their own coin again in the year 1765. The coin had the same inscription, okay, as the one which was issued earlier during the time of Banda Bahadur. The Sikh territories in the late 18th century extended from the Indus to the Jamuna, but they were divided under the different rulers. One of them was Maharaja Ranjit Singh. He united these groups and established his capitals at Lahore in the year 1799. So, children, the next topic that we are going to learn about is of Marathas. Children, when we talk about Marathas, the first thing that comes to our mind is of our beloved Shivaji Chhatrapati Maharaj, isn't it? Now, this is something which I feel I should share with you all before starting this topic in detail. Okay, so you don't have everything in detail in your book, but I think you all need to know some of the information regarding Shivaji Maharaj, which is why I'm telling you something about Shivaji before we start. So Shivaji Maharaj was a great man. Okay, the time in which Shivaji Maharaj reigned over was that of the medieval period. During those days, monarchy or the rule of the kings prevailed everywhere. So, the kings who ruled during that period was Emperor Akbar in the north, Emperor Krishnadeva Raya of Vijayanagar in the south. Okay. Then there were other kings, but these are famous in the history for their benevolent rule. Now, during the rule of these kings, that is during the rule of Mughals, okay, what Shivaji Maharaj saw was that people suffered a lot and were harassed. They could not get enough to eat, nor could they celebrate their festivals or worship their gods openly. They were not sure of safety even in their own homes. And there was a constant fighting between many Watandars like the Deshmukhs and the Deshpandes who owned Jagirs, which brought a great misery to the people. When Shivaji Maharaj saw all this, he undertook the noble task of establishing Swaraj, that is independence, in Maharashtra, which would bring happiness to the people. So children, Shivaji Maharaj was born on 19th of February 1630. His mother's name was Jijabai. Shivaji Maharaj passed the first 6 years of his life in highly unsettled conditions, but even then, his mother Jijabai did not neglect his education. She would impart education to him and at the same time would shower all her affection on him and tell him stories of Rama, Krishna, Bhim, Abhimanyu, and on other occasions she would recite to him devotional songs of Namdev, Jnaneshwar, etc. Shivaji Maharaj liked to listen to the exploits of brave men, and when he grew up, he established a stable kingdom with the support of powerful warrior families. Groups of highly mobile peasants, pastoralists, that is Kunbis, provided the backbone of the Maratha army. Shivaji used these forces or these people to challenge the Mughals in the peninsula. Now, what happened after Shivaji's death? After his death, the effective power in the Maratha state was wielded by a family of Chitpavan Brahmanas who served Shivaji's successors as Peshwa or principal minister. Now children, here you need to understand, though the entire kingdom was ruled over by Shivaji's successors, okay, the person who looked after the Maratha kingdom, okay, not ruled, looked after the Maratha kingdom was the Peshwa. Now let us take an example here. According to the constitution, who is the main supremo of our country? President, right? But the formal charge is taken over by whom? By the president. Similarly, Shivaji's successors were, his children or his grandchildren, and the ministers during the successors' reign were the Peshwas. Okay, that is the difference. So, that time Pune became the capital of the Maratha kingdom. Under the Peshwas, the Marathas developed a successful military. Their success lay in by bypassing the fortified areas of the Mughals, by raiding cities, and by engaging Mughal armies in areas where the supply lines and reinforcements could be easily disturbed. So between 1720 and 1761, the Maratha Empire expanded. And what happened was, in the end, it gradually chipped away the authority of the Mughal Empire. Malwa and Gujarat were seized from the Mughals by the 1720s. And by 1730s, Maratha kingdom was recognized as the overlord of the entire Deccan Peninsula. The Maratha king possessed the right to levy chauth and Sar Deshmukhi in the entire region. Now let us understand what is chauth. Chauth means 25% of the land revenue claimed by zamindars. Okay, chauth is what? 25% of the entire land revenue claimed by zamindars. So basically in the Deccan, this was collected by the Marathas. And what is Sar Deshmukhi? Sar Deshmukhi is nothing but 9 to 10% of the land revenue paid to the head revenue collector in the Deccan. I am repeating myself again. 9 to 10% of the land revenue paid to the head revenue collector in the Deccan. Okay. Now, after raiding Delhi in the year 1737, the frontiers of Maratha dominion expanded rapidly. Let us understand where all. To Rajasthan and Punjab, to Bengal and Orissa, and to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Telugu in the south. Though these were not formally included in the Maratha Empire, but yet they were made to pay tribute as a way of accepting Maratha sovereignty. Expansion brought enormous resources. Okay. These military campaigns also made other rulers hostile towards the Marathas. And as a result of this, they were not inclined to support the Marathas during the Third Battle of Panipat in the year 1761. So, Alongside these endless military campaigns, the Marathas also developed effective administration system. Once the conquest was completed, the Maratha rule was secure, revenue demands were gradually introduced, agriculture was encouraged, and trade revived. This allowed Maratha chief Sardars like Scindia of Gwalior, Gaikwad of Baroda, and Bhosle of Nagpur the resources to raise powerful armies. Ujjain expanded under Scindia's patronage and Indore under Holkar's. So, by all accounts, the cities were large and prosperous and functioned as important commercial and cultural centers. During that time, new trade routes emerged within the areas controlled by the Marathas, and the silk produced in the Chanderi region, found a new outlet in Pune, which was the capital of Maratha. Burhanpur, which earlier participated in the trade between Agra and Surat, now expanded its hinterland to include Pune and Nagpur in the south and Lucknow and Allahabad in the east. Next topic is Jats. So, like other states, the Jats consolidated their power during the late 17th and 18th century. Under their leader, Churaman, they acquired control over the territories, which was situated to the west of the city of Delhi. And by the year 1680, they began dominating the regions between two imperial cities of Delhi and Agra. Now the Jats, they were prosperous agriculturalists, and towns like Panipat and Ballabgarh became important trading centers in the areas which were dominated by them. Under the rule of Surajmal, the kingdoms of Bharatpur emerged as a strong state. So, children, when Nadir Shah sacked Delhi in the year 1739, many of the city's notables took refuge here. His son Jawahir Shah had 30,000 troops of his own and hired another 20,000 Marathas and 15,000 Sikh troops to fight the Mughals. Now let us look at the architecture. Bharatpur fort was built in a fairly traditional style at a dig. The Jats built an elaborate garden palace combining styles seen at Amber and Agra. Its buildings were modelled on architectural forms that first associated with royalty under the Shah Jahan. Children, with this, I end this video. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye and keep learning. And most importantly, wish you all a very, very happy Diwali.